Okay, let's unpack this.
Hmm.
We're tackling a subject today that feels incredibly modern. This rising reliance on our phones, on these apps, for navigating some of the world's most, breathtaking but also dangerous backcountry trails.
It is. The convenience is just so seductive, isn't it? The idea that for free, you can have this device in your hand that gives you freedom.
But the risk, as we're going to see, can be absolutely fatal. Today we're looking at offline trekking maps and trail finder apps and what some are calling a deadly free
It's a
addiction.
real paradox of convenience. You're holding a device with maps of the entire world,
Uh-huh.
and it promises this independent access to routes that were previously only known to locals or really seasoned guides.
But that technology, when you put it in a high-stakes, volatile environment, it's creating this profound and really false sense of security.
And there's no better place to see that play out than in Nepal.
Exactly. The context for our analysis today is Nepal, a place that's synonymous with world-class trekking Annapurna, Everest. These names just define adventure.
But it's also an area where the trails are incredibly dynamic, they're constantly shifting, often they're poorly marked, and the environment itself is just unforgiving.
And we've been tracking this specific failure of digital navigation for a while, largely thanks to the warnings that have been put out repeatedly by Nepal guidebook author David Weiss.
David has been highlighting this danger for years. He argues that for trekkers who are, looking to save a bit of cash, these free offline maps seem like a win-win.
Right. They're accessible, they use what looks like verified information from other trackers.
And they promise independence. But that's the illusion.
Sadly, this danger became a fatal reality at the end of 2025.
That's right. And we have to ground this entire conversation in that very real, very recent tragedy, the death of a 37-year-old German trekker, Astrid Weisser.
She was found deceased in December 2025 after getting lost on the Khopra Danda Trek.
And the crucial detail here, the absolute core of what we need to analyze, is that she was following an old, unused trail. A trail that, despite being physically abandoned, still appeared clearly on some of the most popular map applications.
So our mission today is critical. We need to dissect the inherent risks, the fatal flaws of this crowdsourced navigation data.
And we need to compare the efficacy of digital tracks versus verified official methods.
And ultimately discuss why the seductive convenience of a free app can carry such a devastating, fatal cost in environments as demanding as the high Himalayas.
Let's get into it.
Let's start by just laying out the facts of the incident that brought this whole vulnerability into such sharp, tragic focus. Astrid Weisser, a 37-year-old German national, was trekking alone.
She was in the Annapurna Conservation Area.
Yeah. She was last seen on November 25th, 2025. This was when she checked out of the Khopra Danda Community Lodge.
And when she didn't arrive at her next destination, a place called Baal, which is generally a 5 to 7 hour walk, a search was initiated. Her body was sadly found several days later on December 1st.
And the geography of where they found her is absolutely central to understanding this danger of misplaced digital trust.
It is. She was found at the bottom of a steep, sheer cliff between Khopra and Baal. She had fallen approximately 160 meters.
That's about 525 feet, a massive fall. And crucially, her location was significantly off what should have been the main current trail.
The preliminary investigation pointed to an accidental fall, which is completely consistent with the highly exposed and steep nature of the terrain once you deviate from the proper path.
And this is where the local knowledge just provides the key context, isn't it? The path she was following. The path that was suggested by that little digital line on her screen.
It was known locally to have been unused for several years.
Unused for years.
Yeah. Due to heavy monsoon damage, maybe landslides, or just a shift in the local community's maintenance priorities, this specific path was abandoned.
Yet it persisted on these digital maps as a viable, safe route. It was effectively leading her onto a ghost trail. So before we dig into the technical failure of the app, let's just set the scene for the Khopra Danda trek itself. Because the nature of this route really attracts the kind of traveler who might choose this method of navigation.
It does. The Khopra Danda, or Khopra Ridge trek, it's a real hidden gem in the Annapurna range. It typically takes 5 to 7 days, covers about 55 kilometers.
And difficulty-wise?
We'd classify it as easy to moderate. But that designation assumes you stick to the main safe path.
Right.
It's famous for being a community lodge-based trek. So the lodges are owned and managed by local community members, which ensures the revenue stays local. It has a more authentic, sustainable feel.
And it gained popularity precisely because it offers these jaw-dropping views, Tullagiri and Aprenna South, that rival the incredibly famous and crowded Poon Hill Trek, but without all the foot traffic.
The altitude is serious, but it's manageable for most. The main ridge is at 3,640 meters, so just under 12,000 feet.
Though some trekkers add the side trip up to Kyre Lake, which pushes that altitude to a much more challenging 4,600 meters.
That's a serious day out. But you mentioned something key. This trek appeals directly to independent travelers seeking solitude.
Yeah. How do the numbers reflect that, and why does that solitude amplify the risks so much?
That's the critical loop in this tragedy. While, a classic Annapurna route might see 30, 40, 50,000 trekkers a year, Khopra Danda attracts a fraction of that.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 to 10,000 participants yearly.
So if you break that down by day, especially in the shoulder seasons, you might not see many people at all.
Exactly. On certain segments, particularly the challenging leg Astrid Weisser was on, from Khopra to Debato, you might encounter fewer than 10 people the entire day.
So when a navigation error occurs, there's just no safety in numbers.
None. If you deviate from the path, there is no stream of fellow trekkers to spot you, no one to call out to, and the time it takes for a search party to locate you just increases exponentially.
In that kind of environment, where the margin for error is already so thin because of altitude and exposure, reliable navigation isn't a convenience.
It is, quite literally, a lifeline.
Let's really hone in on that specific section between Khopra and Bale, where she was found. Can you paint a picture of that topography for us?
It's a demanding descent. It's about 11 kilometers, so it takes anywhere from 5 to 7 hours, depending on your fitness and the conditions. You start at the high, exposed Khopra Ridge, and the path immediately starts a steep drop.
Through what kind of terrain?
First, open alpine pastures, but then it plunges into these dense rhododendron and oak forests.
And the path itself is not like a wide, graded highway.
Oh, far from it. The trail narrows in many places, and because of the sheer geography of the ridge, it hugs cliff edges.
So you have exposure.
A lot of it. The potential drop-offs next to the path can be anywhere from 100 to 200 meters.
Wow.
And while the route doesn't require technical climbing gear, a simple slip or misstep is catastrophic. Imagine the path is covered in wet leaves, or you hit a patch of loose shale, or a sudden burst of fog just obscures your vision.
And she was found 160 meters off the main route. This suggests that the digital line she was following diverted her onto a steep, unused, fatal path very early in the descent.
It seems likely, probably within the first kilometer or two where the terrain is still extremely steep and unforgiving.
The crucial realization here for you, listening, is that the digital map didn't just show a slightly longer route. It showed an impossible route.
That is the heart of the matter. The digital line made a choice for her, and that choice led her directly away from the maintained, safer path and toward a precipice.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we move now from this tragic story to the systemic failure of the technology itself. It's not about the phone or the GPS chip. It's about the fundamental integrity of the data being fed into these free apps.
And this is exactly the core argument that David Weiss has been making. He says the danger in Nepal comes from 3 elements colliding: the extremely dynamic Himalayan environment, the low barrier to entry for crowdsourced data, and the seductive, easy-to-use interface of the smartphone app.
Okay, so let's break down these inherent inaccuracies David has been pointing out for years, particularly in apps that rely on crowdsourced data.
The first major flaw is the reliance on user-submitted GPS tracks. When you, as a trekker, use an app to record your walk and then you upload that track, you're providing the raw data that becomes a trail for everyone else.
But that track could be anything.
Anything. An official path, a local shortcut, an informal route that's impassable in the monsoon. The app makes no distinction.
And this brings us right to David Wei's first 2 critical points about this data. He calls them A and B, which sound technical, but they're fundamentally about trust.
Right. So point A is that the GPS data that gets uploaded is only confirmed to exist. That's it. It's not confirmed to be the official or safe or correct path.
The app just registers that a GPS receiver moved along this line.
Exactly. It confirms a single instance of travel. That's all.
So if someone scrambles dangerously across a landslide or walks across a stream that's frozen in winter but will be a raging torrent in spring,
that route is now digitally verified. And that leads directly to his point B. The trekker who uploaded that route might have just got lucky.
Right.
Maybe they had exceptional mountain experience, maybe they were forced to scramble over a dangerous washout, or maybe they were just very skilled at finding a workaround that day. But that one person's success does not verify the path as safe or repeatable for the next person.
And the app treats a decades-old, maintained community path and a single, risky scramble as if they're equivalent safety data points.
That's the conceptual failure. It's huge. The map is showing you possibilities, not probabilities, and it is certainly not showing you certified safety.
And then you layer on top of that what Waze calls point C trail volatility. This is just crucial for a place like Nepal.
Absolutely. Trails there are so dynamic. The monsoon season, roughly June through September, it doesn't just make the ground wet, it washes away stable paths, it causes major landslides, and it forces local communities to reroute trails constantly.
Sometimes several times in a single season.
And those frequent, immediate changes are just too fast for a global crowdsourced database to ever keep up with.
So a digital track that was recorded 6 months ago in October might literally no longer exist come May.
But the free offline map will happily guide a user right to the edge of a new chasm or a freshly unstable slope. The trail stability is ephemeral, but the digital data is presented as if it's permanent and reliable.
And moving beyond the quality of the tracks themselves, there are some pretty significant technical issues with the underlying data in these free apps, right? Especially in rugged regions like the Annapurnas.
Yeah, we're getting into the technical debt here, which is often invisible to the user. Many free map apps rely on really old base elevation data. The most common source is the Shuttle Radar Topographic Mission, or SRTM data.
And that was collected when?
Back in the year 2000.
So 25-year-old elevation data. Why is that a problem in the Himalayas?
Well, SRTM was groundbreaking for its time, but it has huge limitations, especially in areas of extreme vertical relief and dense tree cover. The resolution is coarse, and the way it models extremely jagged, steep mountains like in the Annapurna Range is inherently inaccurate.
So what does that mean in practice?
In these remote areas, it leads to massive errors in altitude reporting, sometimes off by as much as 1,000 meters.
1,000 meters, that's not a rounding error. That fundamentally changes your entire risk assessment for the day.
It changes everything. If your app tells you you're descending 500 meters over 3 hours, you budget your daylight, your water, your energy accordingly.
But if the actual drop is 1,500 meters...
You're facing severe risk calculation errors. You could run out of daylight, increasing the chance of an accident. You could suffer from exhaustion or hypothermia because your physical expectation was dramatically wrong.
And then there's the reliability of the phone's GPS itself, separate from the data it's trying to interpret.
That's another deadly assumption, that it's perfectly reliable. The GPS signal's accuracy can be severely hampered by heavy tree cover, which is all over the Khopra Danda descent, or by deep, narrow valleys.
And the phone's own software can introduce errors.
Yes. Battery optimization settings, which are designed to extend your phone's life, frequently interfere with the continuous recording you need for accurate GPS tracking.
That's a built-in contradiction, isn't it? The longer the trek, the more you need to conserve battery, but conserving battery undermines the accuracy of the tracking that's supposed to keep you safe.
Exactly. When the phone skips data points to save power, the app compensates by drawing a direct, straight line between the points it did manage to record. This results in something called distance smoothing.
So the recorded track on the app is actually shorter than the real winding trail.
Much shorter and much more dangerous.
Can you give us an analogy for distance smoothing that really clarifies the danger?
Okay, imagine the actual path is a goat track that curves widely around a sheer precipice to maintain a safe gradient. If the app is saving battery and only records a GPS point every few minutes, the distance smoothing algorithm will just cut the corner.
It draws a smooth, optimized, straight digital line.
A line that is now cutting across the sheer cliff face.
Yeah.
So you are standing on the safe winding path, but your phone is telling you the route is 20 feet to your left, directly over the drop-off.
It creates a fatal disconnect between the smooth, virtual path and the terrifying physical reality you are standing in.
And this smoothing and crowdsourcing issue leads directly to one of the biggest dangers these apps create globally. The proliferation of unofficial trails, which the app treats as if they were official, maintained infrastructure.
A major criticism is that these mass-market apps just fail to distinguish between an official, signed, maintained trail funded by park services and an unofficial path.
And that unofficial category can be anything from a lightly worn hunter's path to a dangerous, steep scramble, totally unsuited for the average trekker.
The sources cite the Red River Gorge area in the U.S. as a perfect, high-profile example of how this digital confusion turns into a search and rescue nightmare. It mirrors the problem in Nepal.
The Red River Gorge incident is a stark illustration. In that area, map apps were displaying entire networks of loop trails with these arbitrary user-assigned names. like the Red River Gorge Loop Trail, that simply do not exist officially.
On any Park Service map, you mean?
Right. These loops were compiled from maybe half a dozen existing trails, but the app bundled them into one official-sounding, singular entity.
And the moment of failure comes when the unexpected happens. A hiker gets lost or injured and manages to call for help.
They call the dispatcher and say they are injured on the Red River Gorge Loop Trail. The search and rescue teams, many of whom are local volunteers with intimate knowledge of the official trail network, now have to waste critical, life-saving hours trying to figure out where this person might be.
Based on a trail name that is completely arbitrary and unofficial.
It transforms a manageable rescue into a desperate search operation.
And this digital misrepresentation leads hikers into terrain they aren't equipped for.
Exactly, and we have to connect this back to Nepal. In a remote area like Khopra Danda, where search and rescue is already slow and difficult, if a trekker reports they're off the main route, but following a smooth digital ghost trail labeled Khopra Descent Shortcut, it makes finding them quickly almost impossible.
The crowdsourcing undermines the very system that's designed to help you.
And we should just briefly touch on the ecological costs, too. When users share precise GPS tracks to sensitive off-trail locations, the ease of access can lead to rapid environmental degradation.
As an influx of unprepared visitors causes erosion, damages delicate plants, and disturbs wildlife in areas that were never meant to sustain high traffic.
So this exhaustive analysis really pivots us to the alternatives. If free digital data is flawed and potentially fatal, what is the reliable solution, especially in a place like Nepal?
We can return to David Weiss for a fundamental contrast. His point D emphasizes the enduring value of paper maps. He notes that offline, real maps are still printed in Nepal for a reason.
They are inexpensive, but the routes to pick it are legitimate and often official, just like the routes he uses and verifies in his own guidebooks.
A physical map forces you to engage with the topography and the scale in a way a smartphone screen just doesn't.
A paper map will not suddenly smooth out a cliff edge for you.
True. But we also have to recognize the major official safety shift Nepal introduced, the mandatory guide mandate.
Right. This took effect in March and April of 2023. The Nepal Tourism Board announced that all foreign trekkers must hire a licensed trekking guide from a registered company when they're in conservation areas, including the Annapurnas.
This was a clear attempt to increase safety and route adherence after a series of incidents.
And the pros of this are undeniable, especially when it comes to current information. A licensed guide ensures safety, provides knowledge of the most up-to-date trail conditions, which, as we said, can change daily.
They know which ghost trails the apps are showing, and they know the correct, stable route.
And beyond safety, guides handle essential logistics, especially on roads like Khopra Ridge, where the community lodges have very limited capacity.
Right, I've heard that. Khopra Ridge Community Lodge is known to run out of beds, even turning away trekkers who have bookings if they arrive late.
A guide avoids that logistical panic. They communicate ahead, they secure your spot, and they manage the pace, which is a massive safety factor in itself.
But the sources also highlight the controversial reality of this ruling, which contributes to the problem: lax enforcement.
This is the dangerous gray area that solo trekkers are operating in. While the mandate is official, the system designed to monitor it is often incomplete. We pay permit fees, specifically the ACCAP and TIMS fees, which should be funding this.
Can we quickly clarify those two fees? What are ACCAP and TIMS?
Sure, ACP is the Annapurna Conservation Area Project. That's essentially your national park entry fee. It goes towards conservation and infrastructure.
Okay.
TIMS is the trekker's information management system. This card is meant to register every trekker, providing data that's crucial for safety tracking and search and rescue.
So these are vital safety checks. And what's happening on the Khopra Danda Trail with those?
Well, while ACCAP checkpoints do exist and are staffed, you need your permit to get in the critical TIMS card checkpoints, the ones meant to check for guides and register you for a specific route.
They're unstaffed.
Or inconsistently manned on parts of the Khopra Danda trek. It's a known issue.
This creates a perverse incentive, doesn't it? An official rule says you need a guide, but inconsistent enforcement encourages people who want independence to skip the guide to save cash, falsely believing their phone is an adequate substitute.
It absolutely creates a system where the riskiest choice, solo trekking with just a free app, is tacitly enabled by the failure of the official enforcement system.
Which is why we have to provide recommendations for reliable navigation, knowing the risks involved.
Yes. If solo trekking is going to remain a reality in this gray area, we have to stress a multifaceted approach that goes way beyond relying on a single app.
So what's the foundation of reliable navigation at high altitude?
For any serious multi-day trekking, the first step is to advocate for dedicated hardware. Dedicated GPS devices, like our Garmin, offer far more reliable, accurate, and consistent tracking than a smartphone.
They're built for it. They're ruggedized. They don't battle internal battery settings that cause distance smoothing.
Exactly. But if you are committed to using your smartphone, the best practice is redundancy.
Don't rely on a single app.
Never. You should use at least 2 different applications and rigorously cross-reference the data. Apps like Gaia GPS, Caltopo, and Osmond are generally seen as superior alternatives,
Why is that?
mainly because they offer more robust features and allow you to load superior, high-resolution topographic map layers, which are essential for real backcountry navigation.
And the preparation has to happen before you even set foot on the trail.
Yes, you must ensure the entire area you plan to cover, including potential detours or emergency routes, is fully downloaded for offline use before you leave Wi-Fi. A partially downloaded map is useless when you need it most.
And then there's the ultimate safety backup, the one that can never suffer from battery drain or distance smoothing, the analog method.
Every expert, including David Weiss, stresses this. Carry a physical map and a compass. And crucially, you have to possess the skill to use them.
Carrying them is useless if you don't know how to orient yourself.
Exactly. A physical map doesn't have technical debt. It shows the contours, the valleys, the established routes, printed by a legitimate cartographer. When technology fails, and it always has the potential to fail, the map and compass are your non-negotiable insurance policy.
And finally, the most current data source of all is not digital.
It's human. Local knowledge always trumps technology. Always consult local sources, the lodge manager at Khopra Danda, the tea house owners, your guide.
They know exactly what the last monsoon washed out.
They know if a section of path is currently unstable, and they know the official safe route that bypasses the cliff edge where an old digital track might still lead you.
So the tragic death of Astrid Weisser really highlights this critical dual failure: the fatally misleading nature of free app data and the failure of adequate infrastructure. Specifically, the long-documented lack of official signposts on Nepali trails.
This is where we have to address the accountability of the system. Trekkers are paying significant permit fees, those ACK and TIMS fees, which are explicitly intended to fund trail maintenance, safety infrastructure, and signposting.
Yet so often the signs are missing, ambiguous, or damaged.
And if the official infrastructure is failing, the choice for an independent trekker becomes terrifyingly simple. You either try to follow an ambiguous, overgrown, unmarked path, or you rely on that shiny, smooth GPS track on your phone.
Which, as we know, can be a ghost route.
This is a systemic oversight by the organizations that are tasked with trail safety. When trekkers pay permits to organizations like the national parks and associations like TAN, the Trekking Agencies Association of Nepal, they expect that basic safety infrastructure will be in place. When it isn't, the free app becomes the default.
And we've seen the consequence of that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a positive and, frankly, a pretty heartening update to share following this tragedy. The source material notes a real, immediate, and effective community action that stepped in.
Yes. David Weiss was very keen to share this. Following Astrid's death, the team from SARS Dogs Nepal, a fantastic local rescue team, immediately set about putting up new and clearer signs throughout the Khopra Danda Trek.
That's a crucial on-the-ground intervention to physically correct the safety deficiency on that specific route.
To prevent another incident exactly like this.
And what's fascinating here is the funding source for this vital safety work. It underscores the failure of the broader system.
It does. This labor was financed entirely by donations and volunteers.
So you have dedicated volunteers and a rescue organization performing essential maintenance and safety work, putting up signs, marking paths.
Work that trekkers have already paid permit fees for through the national parks and TAN.
It speaks volumes about the passion and commitment of the local and international trekking community to real safety, especially when the official channels are characterized by, lax enforcement and deferred maintenance.
It really does. The new signage on the Khopra Danda Trek is a small but vital victory. It corrected a crucial safety deficiency that was fatally exposed by this tragedy.
It's a testament to local initiative, but it shouldn't have been necessary.
It shouldn't have. And we have to remember that while the app was misleading, it was the lack of official, unambiguous markers on the ground that drove the trekker to rely on the digital ghost trail in the first place. Safety requires both good data and good infrastructure.
So what does this all mean? The painful lessons from the Khopra Danda incident and the death of Astrid Weisser provide a really stark synthesis. The convenience and the low cost of free digital access are extremely tempting.
But they are no substitute for verified, current, local information in volatile, high-altitude environments.
The greatest danger of crowdsourced data isn't just its inherent inaccuracy, it's the misplaced trust it inspires.
Exactly. It convinces an unprepared user that they are fully informed and standing on a safe route when they're anything but. In environments like Khopra Danda, real safety is not achieved by saving cash. It is bought by investing in legitimate, verified resources.
And adopting a rigorous, redundant, multifaceted approach to navigation. When you are 160 meters off the trail on a steep, sheer descent in the Himalayas, there are no software patches, no quick fixes, and no undo button. You have to have the right tools, the right preparation, and most importantly, the right information from the very start.
So for anyone listening who is planning a trek in Nepal, we highly encourage you to use verifiable resources. David Ways, who provided so much of the context for this analysis, has an excellent and thorough Khopra Danda trekking guide, which outlines the correct, official, and safest route. His work is invaluable for serious trekkers.
You can find all of his unbiased and independent information through his Nepal travel website, which is called The Longest Way Home. He details his comprehensive guidebooks there. Unlike many sources you find online, he pays his own way and offers genuine, trustworthy routes verified by extensive on-the-ground experience.
Which is critical in this volatile landscape.
It is.
The final, provocative thought we want to leave you with is this. In an age where digital convenience makes everything seem accessible, we forget that in true wilderness, the value of information has to be weighted by its source. If the map is free, you have to question who paid for the verification. In the mountains, that cost is sometimes measured in lives.
Be safe out there and choose your route information wisely.